here on these conversations. There's so many comments, like really cool comments that people.
Yeah,
Wow.
Starting with the first three now. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It must be. It must be a lot of work. What are these shows about, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't. Yeah, so I'm not really at liberty to say, because there'll be a channel launch in February. So, but it's a lot of reality. So there's a lot of pre-production, a lot of casting. Started shooting one. So it's hectic. It's been hectic. And, you know, we've been quite fortunate during this COVID time to have, I wouldn't say a lot of work, but enough work.
Driving in the period.
I mean, yeah, it's not a normal, you know, we had a couple of really tough months in the beginning of COVID. I think March, April, most of May was quiet, but I think, you know, clients, people were just trying to figure out what was happening. So I think now we've just, you know, the corporate world and the marketing world has just decided to live with the new normal.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's been from around, you know, June, July, it kind of picked up, in August and September, and now have been quite busy.
All right. So you seem to have like a really long day. Do you work normal 12 hours, or is it 8?
No.
It's 8, right?
No.
So your day starts at about what time and ends at about what time? Because, I mean, you host a morning show that requires you, I guess, to be up at about, God knows what, 3 a.m. or something.
No.
Fresh out of bed.
No. I get up at 4:30. Well, about 4. I have 2 alarms, 4:15 and 4:30. You know, get up,
you have to
take a shower. At least once, yeah. Take a shower, make a juicing, so I have a healthy juice at 5. Some days end at 8, I think. For November. I mean, you know, this is going to sound very cliched as well, but you know, it's not really work, is it? So, it doesn't. Yes, I get tired. Don't really. I'm not dreading it. You know what I mean? I can do it, because I always say I have the most fun job in the world. I get to make pictures and noise for a living. So.
So honestly, I think that we in the media get to have the most fun while entertaining people, or I don't know what to call it, informing them, edutaining them, or whatever. Yeah. So, you know, you started by saying your day starts at about 4:15, 4:30, and you know, one just wonders, where do you get the energy? Because the older we get, our energy either diminishes or it triples. So it's opposite. Energy shoots up. What?
I think a lot of it has to do with my recovery from substance abuse as well. You know, living a clean life. It's not hinged on the fact that I have these crazy hours. That's not the reason I do it. But it certainly helps to be, you know, sober and, you know, without over and, you know, substance free. You know, so I think if I was still using substances, it might be a bit more of a different story. Energy level, quite healthy. I would be healthy. Exercise, you know, when I exercise, it's pretty good. So I think there's a lot of habits you kind of have to put in place as you get older as well. I meditate, you know, at night before I sleep. So that helps with sleep. I'm a notoriously bad sleeper and have been my whole life. I'm one of those people whose minds never really, you know, shuts off.
Why is that?
I'm just, it's always moving, you know. Like I don't know, you know. I don't know if I was never diagnosed with ADD as a child or whatever the case may be, but so I have to kind of put myself in a place of complete relaxation before I go to sleep. And if I get a good 5-6 hours, then I'm good. I'm fine.
So how do you meditate? Like, do you just sit somewhere silent and stuff, and then, or or do you listen to, what is it called? What's that music called? Music by Yanni or whatever, and then take yourself away.
No, 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 no. So, I mean, sometimes I'll do a guided meditation. I'll find something on YouTube that is of interest to me. I've been doing a lot of guided meditation from a friend's advice, actually, on reconnecting with your inner child. And it's quite powerful. But most of the time, it's really just silent and dark. But it's not designed as falling asleep, because that's a different thing. I meditate and then I will get up for a few minutes, maybe finish something like brush my teeth or whatever. So I like to separate the sleep and the meditation. So there's actually and it can be anything from 5 minutes to 25 minutes, depending on how tired I am. It's just to clear the head and clear the mind and think about the day. I also use it as a time to give gratitude as well. For the day that has passed. Obviously it's always punctuated with gratitude for staying sober for that day as well. We look at it as one day at a time. We can't really tell what's going to happen tomorrow. So I give gratitude for being sober every day that I'm sober. Let's put it that way. Maybe tomorrow will be a different story, but generally.
So tell me something, Fahreed. Do you remember what could have triggered your substance abuse in the first place? Because going by the video on Engage on YouTube, you said it had been years since you were abusing substances. So what could have triggered it in the first place?
I mean, I've spoken pretty openly about it. I had a pretty dysfunctional childhood, and so a lot of abuse, both physical and emotional. And that caused a lot. I mentioned in the Engage talk, I used sports a lot as a child growing up in the US.
Yeah.
So I played basketball, I swam. But then when I got to college, I wasn't as athletic as some of the other students that were, athletes. So, it was just an easier thing to do than in other things that help you.
Wow. And, for anybody who could have listened to you on radio, never have imagined in a million years that you were actually going down that road, like the road where you even needed to get into rehab. I mean, I've ever thought that. But at what
made money, had a nice car. I just, at some point I started going to see an addiction counselor, and would stop using for a few days, but then get back into it. And then at one point it just became, I realized to myself, I'm an addict, and I can't give up these things I can't get rid of these things in my life. So I just knew that, going to see a counselor once a week or once every 2 weeks wasn't going to be enough for me. I needed to get away from people, places, and things, which is a big thing for addicts, and ended up in South Africa for 35 days. No phone, no laptop, no contact with the outside world,
Oh my word. How did you get through? Because I can imagine 35 days for somebody who has been used to a certain lifestyle. That must have been like the longest 35 days of your life.
It started that way. The first, I think, week, maybe 2 weeks or 10 days to 10 to 14 days was every day felt like a year, but then when you get into the program, when you actually buy into the recovery program, I'll be honest with you. The day I left, I was emotional about leaving this place. I made so many great connections, and I was really nervous about getting back into the real world. That's a very safe space to be, isn't it? Really, in a rehab center. I mean, clearly, we used to go to the mall to get like shopping on the weekends. I think it was Saturdays, and like for our rooms, like little dorm room kind of setup, and they would check everything you put in your shopping cart to make sure you weren't buying anything, including mouthwash with alcohol, anything.
Wow.
So so very safe place to be. So I actually was supposed to be there for 28 days. I tacked on an extra week and made it 35 days, based on the fact that I didn't think I was ready to come out yet. You're talking of 20, 25, 26 years of using. which is, you know, a relatively long time, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure many of the people who are watching this right now are younger than that, you know, or age. So many of their lives I was using. So, so no, after the first, you know, 10, 14 days, it really, so yes, of course, it was a shock to the system when you get there. Absolutely. I mean, you get there, you know, you're told to basically undress into your boxer shorts. They go through every item of clothing you have. They go through the clothes you're wearing. Yeah, I mean, you could sneak in anything, you know, I guess. And I'm sure that people have. I didn't, but I'm sure people have. So it was hard in the beginning, you know, but the program itself was great. You know, hats off to the guys at Bloomendale Addiction Treatment Center. I met some wonderful people, not just the other clients, as we call ourselves, but the recovery assistants, the psychiatrists, the counselors.
So there had to be some sort of acceptance by the time you know, flew all the way to South Africa for rehab for 28 to 35 days. What was that you know made you make that decision and say, okay, I think I have a problem, I need rehab, and I'm going to South Africa for 28, 35 days?
I mean, if I can be candid, it was really because I just wanted to get on a path of being a better person. You know, alcohol and drugs is a common cause of making really bad and you know, sick decisions, you know, whether and hurting people, and also, you know, wanting to live a life of honesty and authenticity and not constantly hiding and lying to people about, you know, where I was and what I was doing. So there was that. And then, you know, if I could be candid, not just to stop feeling like shit all the time, you know, which is basically how I woke up every morning.
Yeah.
And would go and sweat it out in the gym and then feel a little bit better. But I had no idea what clarity of mind was until I got to rehab. I mean, in my adult life, I had no idea what clarity of mind was.
So, and I want to ask this question: did your friends know? Had they just accepted it?
Closest friends, you know, he made comments, of course. Excuse me, my wife at the time knew.
Yeah.
You know, my mom, you know, she kind of knew, but you know, people were kind of scared to talk to me about anything. I had a pretty hot temper during that period as well, so people were kind of scared to approach me with it. And you know, look, to be honest with you, there's a scene here in Nairobi where it's more or less accepted, you know. So if you hang around those people, no one's going to point fingers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, no one's going to call you out. No one really wants to look at themselves, you know. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know, you also mentioned that one of the reasons your energy levels are so high, I guess, is because now you're more sober than you were before, and just being grateful for being sober each and every day. But do you feel like you missed out on time? Like, do you feel like time passed you by? Do you look back and say, I wasted too much time, so I need to make up for it?
there's a degree of that. Sure, I think every addict will go through that. But you know, as I said I really think I said to a counselor in rehab once, I wish I'd done this 10 years earlier. And she's quite a spiritual lady. She
Mm-hmm.
said to me, you know, you did this when you needed to. Um, I have some regrets, obviously, about my past, that are not, you know, that I deal with every day. But at the same time, I don't think that I can look back and say, oh man, you know, I wish I'd done this sooner. I wish I'd, you know, that's just self-defeating at the end of the day. So you
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to move on and be the best version of yourself you can be now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I imagine if it was when I was 55 or, you know, I mean, there were kids in rehab as well, you know, and you know, I'm so grateful for them for, you know, I'm so happy rather for them that they got to experience it early on. But you know, I think it happens when it's supposed to happen. You know, I didn't waste, you know, too much of my life. I lost a lot, you know, obviously in terms of family. But you know, you then spend time trying to be a better person, and people see that, you know. I have a great relationship with my ex-wife. You know, before COVID, I was in Switzerland with my kids every 2 months. So there's, you know, of course I would like them to be here, but I can't wake up every morning with those regrets, you know, of course, but that's not to say I don't think about it, because I do.
Okay. And tell me, because, you know, many times you have the money, you have everything, you know, but then the money investments are opposite side. During this period, this 26-year period that you talk about, are there meaningful investments that you made, that you could have made, that you're so proud of, and some that you feel, okay, I think I should have done better?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Nusu Nusu Productions was, you know, created in the height of my addiction.
Yeah.
You know, we're still there, you know. I'm not sure if we would have been, you know, a more, you know, successful company had I been sober. I don't know. I mean, I see the trajectory we're going now with my sobriety, and it does look very promising.
Yeah.
I bought a restaurant, which failed miserably, and that was in the height of my addiction.
Whoa.
But I think I bought it so that I'd have a bar that I could drink at, to be to be honest, which is
Okay.
you know, but I have no, like, you know, that's okay for that. That's the least of my worries. You know what I mean? Other investments I've made, other things, decisions I've made, probably the ones that are from a more personal perspective and more family oriented perspective would be the ones that affect me more than the business ones. Money comes, money goes, you know. I've had very good years and very bad years, and, you know, I've had, you know, somehow through God's grace, I've come out of it the other side, you know, in one piece. I think that's really where, you know, for me, money is not, it used to be everything to me. It really isn't anymore.
Mm-hmm. Someone seems to know that restaurant that you might have bought. Was it a Valley Arcade?
It was called Monico's. Now it's an art cafe.
Oh wow, Monico's. Oh my word, I remember it. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about radio, because I mean, you did radio. You actually did radio with a friend, no, with a sister of one of my friends called Shanice.
Yeah, I heard you talking. You're friends with Nancy.
Yeah, I'm friends with Nancy. So, I mean, you did radio. It was, I mean, you were at the top of your game, and then you just left radio. Why?
I did. You know, okay, so I went from Capital. Wow, this is my third stint at Capital now. So, I left when my son was born. My firstborn was born because Nusu Nusu was getting really busy, and I hardly had any time with him, getting up so early and then coming home so late. So that's the first reason. Then I went back when they launched XFM, which is a rock station. I was kind of poached by the head of Radio Africa, a gentleman by the name of Patrick Kwako.
Yeah.
And then I just disappeared from radio altogether. And when I came back from rehab, I was doing, you know, yoga. I was meditating. I was really trying to find this sort of spiritual balance in myself, which doesn't come like that. You know what I mean? It's something from within. You know, those are just things that you can add on. Something was always missing. And I realized when I got the call to go back to Capital that was the one thing that was missing from my life. The one thing that I enjoy more than anything else is being on radio. And I didn't even negotiate a salary with Capital. I'm not there for the money this time. Of course, it's nice to have the money, but you know, for the first time in my life, I'm doing something because, you know, 100% and wholeheartedly because of the passion behind it. It's not driven by finances. I love radio. I don't think that I ever loved it this way before I got sober. And also I realize now the importance of that job. You know, it's not just a job that, you know, is a cool job to have where everyone says, what a cool job you have. I realize the importance of that tool of communication, of that influence that you have with that microphone. And I don't think I realized that until this time around.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying it. Of course, some mornings are really hard to get up, don't get me wrong. But the second I get into that studio, you know, all the fatigue, all the pressure just kind of disappears for those 4 hours. And
Yeah,
that's a really beautiful place to be, you know, a really beautiful place to be.
absolutely. And so, I mean, you now make a comeback because I think I listened to you. Was it on Nation FM? Was it Nation? I think it
Yeah,
was Nation FM before going back to Capital.
sure. I did a
What,
short stint
what,
at Nation.
yeah, what was the reaction like, you mean, from the listeners after you being off the radio for some time and then now you're back? Did you feel a little weird, or was this now you saying, you know what, this is my second chance and I can do it even better?
I felt old. The average
Okay.
age of the Capital presenter or radio presenter is about 25 now.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of, so I went back to Capital on the 10th of June last year, which is my birthday. And I
Okay.
remember on the night, had a friend staying with me from India. And we were chatting the night before, and I was so nervous because I had no idea what the expectation would be. And there were so many people telling me, man, it's changed, you know, it's a young person's game. So I really let that kind of feed into how I was, you know, approaching it.
Yeah.
I had no, like, I don't know. It's been incredible. Like, I feel like this time around, the response and the love has been, you know, better than ever before. There's a lot of people who had never heard me on radio. You know what I mean? Like, they'd never heard, which I find so odd. But I
So
mean, I guess it
you
makes
were now
sense. But I
building
just,
you are now building like a new fan base, and just that's interesting when you say there are people who didn't know you. I don't even
yeah,
believe it. The people who didn't know you, people who don't know you.
I found it so odd. Like when people would be like, you know, who's this guy? Oh, he sounds so cool, and I'm like, you don't know who I am, you know, like it's me, you know. So, of course, the older generation obviously remember, but there's some young people out there who'd never heard me on radio, and I found that odd. And then, you know, to be able to connect with people from the ages of 18 all the way to sort of 45 or 50, it's incredible, you know. I just thoroughly enjoy, and Capital for me was always kind of home.
Yeah.
So I just feel at home there. I feel like it's the place I belong, and it's been a great ride. You know, it's been a year and almost a year and a half now. Next month will be a year and a half, and yeah, it's the show is just I just feel different right now doing it. You know, I really thoroughly. I don't know. Maybe it's the combination of just realizing the tool that I have, but also, you know, the joy that you bring to the joy you bring to people. When you need to get serious, you can get serious. Again, having clarity of mind every morning, not waking up with a hangover, it's all plays into, you know, it's a total package of things, you know.
Right. So when you came back to Capital FM, you were now hosting a show with Amina Rabar.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was her influence in making you feel, you know, like, okay, I think this thing is all right?
So Amina and I, you know, man, I have to say this, since it would take someone very special to make me feel the way I felt when I was working with Shanice.
Yeah.
It would take someone very talented for me to feel comfortable working with. And, you know, barring a few months of getting to know each other that was a bit, you know, difficult in the beginning, we're two very strong personalities.
Yeah.
We're two people who like to have control of the studio and the microphones. But, you know, Amina's gone. She left, I think, last month. But from around sort of October last year up until the time she left, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed myself,
Yeah.
to the same level, if not more, than I did with Shanice. And I would always tell people, you know, who has a job where you can laugh with someone from 6 in the morning until 10 when the microphones are on and off? So it's 4 hours. Who gets to do that? You know, we got along really well. And I have so much respect for Amina. She is really a really smart and very funny individual. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time working with her. In fact, I really miss her. You know, some mornings I go there and I'm like, man, and I'll have something I'm saying that's funny, and I kind of miss the reaction, you know. So
Oh
so there
yeah.
are times still now. Yeah, but I really enjoyed working with her. I did. I mean, I'm sad that she left, but you know, people move on from radio. But I said from day one, if she ever wanted to come back to Capital, I would have no issue with her jumping right back onto the morning show with me. I really enjoyed my time with her. It wasn't long enough. It was very short, you know, just over a year working together. And you know, we were becoming sort of one name, weren't we? Amina and Fahreed. That was kind of the, you know, that was, you know, it was always about Amina and Fahreed, you know, and I'd have people walking up to me, corporates, from kids, all the way from kids to corporate CEOs saying, "Oh my God, you guys are so great." And you know, it's always hard when someone leaves. I've also done that to people in the past. You know, I've gotten up and said enough's enough and left. So you know, I can't be angry and upset and hurt, but I would love to have her back, you know.
I know, yeah, but she's really good at what she does. And so are
100%.
you, by the way. I also
Thank you.
feel, I get the feeling that you came back stronger. You came back even more energized, because if we who listened to you back in the day now listen to you now, you know, there's that sense of, it's like new energy that you brought on board. And I mean, now you came back at a time where online media is all over the place. How has that played into radio, and what do you think radio is now with online media, social media all over the place?
This is a extremely. I think I've lost you for a second. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. This is extremely interesting comment you made, because you know what it said to me was, radio's dead, everything's online now. And I said to her, just give me 6 months with you, you'll see the difference. And she realized it after that, that it was a huge you know, a huge shift
Mhm.
if you're doing radio the right way. And I'm not saying my way is the right way, but there is a way to do it. There's a strategy behind it. There's a, you know, some fundamental things that need to be done. And she really then bought into it, which was great, you know. I together side by side. I mean, I've realized now being at Capital, you know, has made me an influencer, which I was not, you know, didn't even know
Yeah,
what I was until I went back to Capital. So I think the two can kind of live side by side.
great. And where do you think the future is for radio now, given all of these dynamics? I mean, we're seeing the rise and rise of podcasts that's making some radio stations feel like they now need to also focus on talk radio, quote unquote talk radio. What do you think about
I
that?
think, you know, if you look at the sort of around the world, you know, in the big radio, US, Australia, and the UK, I don't think radio is dying. Traditional radio, I really don't. I think what we've had here, and I can say it from a point of experience, is a lack of good radio for a very long time. Um, you know, we were lucky enough to have been fundamentally trained by, you know, some of the best people in the industry globally when Capital launched. And I talk about us, I'm talking about people like Caroline, I'm talking about Caroline Matoko, I'm talking about people like Mina Kageni, I'm talking about, you know, people like Yves D'Souza. And if you look at the guys who people remember, or the guys who are still on air, it's really those names that keep coming up. I think that the training backbone of radio has completely disappeared. And I think that people got tired of radio. People got tired of, you know, this person can sing, or this person's a comedian, so let's put them on air. I'm not saying that, you know, there aren't talented people from those disciplines on air, that there are not talented people from those disciplines on air. What I'm saying is not everybody who can do something in the entertainment industry can be on radio. Radio is also a talent in its own right.
Yeah.
So you can't just look at it like, this person is great at you know, stand-up comedy, so they can be on radio. Because I kind of, you know, I would say it's an insult to the industry, because I don't consider myself, I'm funny on radio, but I'll never do stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? And I think that's how we have to look at it. Radio itself is not just about people that are good at other things. There are people that are good at radio,
Yeah.
and there's a certain fundamental training and approach to radio that has to be adhered to. And, you know, of course, we're all there because of our personalities and our different characters, but there's a fundamental base that many of the great radio presenters in Kenya had, and that came from one or two people that started the radio industry here. That, you know, people like Phil Matthews, There's a great program director at Radio Africa in Australia, local Peter Sinclair.
Yeah, I
You
know.
know,
He was actually
yeah,
also our programs director when I worked with Capital FM in Uganda. So he used to do the rounds between Kenya.
right, because he's the group
Yeah.
programming director. Correct. Yes. You know, a lot of people don't like him. You know, I'll say it. A lot of people think that he's hard to work with, but you know, I learned a hell of a lot from working under Pete when I was at XFM.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we've forgotten that someone can talk on a microphone, put them on radio. Someone can sing, you know, in an auditorium, put them on radio. No, I've trained for this. I'll tell you who should be on radio, or they should tell you who should be on radio. Um, you know, and of course there are diamonds in the rough. You'll just find someone who has that, and you're just like, oh my God, this person is perfect for radio, of course. But no, again, going back to your question, I don't think radio is dying. I don't think radio is dead. I think that radio done well and done right
Yeah.
can last forever. I mean, you know, people in Australia, I mean, that they live and die by the radio still to this day, you know.
Right. So you're saying you started, let's talk about TV production and these six, okay, you said you're not going to talk about the 6 shows, but Nusu Nusu Productions, you said you started it at the height of your substance abuse. And now it's grown into this big production house that's doing all this tremendous work. In fact, I was looking at some of the posts on Facebook from Mohammed Hersi, and there's something he posted on there about a video you did in Mombasa. Was it how many weeks? 2 weeks? 2 weeks ago? Was it? I don't know.
We were there about a month ago for about 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this production house has now grown into this big thing. Are you looking at a time where you're gonna have to leave radio again and then concentrate on Nusu Nusu Productions?
You know, I have this constant battle with myself, and I always tell myself when I get too busy, I'm going to leave radio. But I don't. If I can handle it, I'm just gonna. For as long as I can, I'll be on radio. For as long as I can.
Right. Okay. There's someone here called, what's her name? Okoth. She's saying, "Hey Fahreed, I'd love to hear you share about upcoming opportunities, auditions, and things like that. Also, please tell us about your production company, Nusu Nusu Production."
So look, there are going to be some opportunities for presenters and talent.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple of auditions already, but you'll see them on my IG and on the Nusu Nusu IG handle, and possibly on online as well on other digital platforms. As far as sorry, what was the second part of that question?
The second part of the question was about talking to us more about Nusu Nusu Production. I guess.
So Nusu Nusu Productions, you know, we're I wouldn't say we're a massive organization because we're not. We're a small business or a medium-sized business, but we have, you know, we do everything. So we do a lot of creative for programming, for commercials, documentaries, lifestyle shows, but we do everything in-house. So we create, we pre-produce, we produce, we edit, we color grade, we sound mix. Everything is done in-house. So we've got everything under one roof for a full production. So we don't just do part of it. You know, the only thing we outsource is animations, complex animations and things like that. So it's but we cover more or less every area of production. So it's not just TV shows, it's not just TV commercials, it's not just documentaries. We do live events as well. So we're pretty complete in that respect. Been around since 2008.
Yeah.
So 12 years.
12 years.
And we've worked on some pretty big formats as well, including Coke Studio, Big Brother, Idols, Face of Africa. So we've worked on some pretty big formats as well.
Right. Okay. And back to the online disruption as well. There's so much that has changed about TV production. The kind of content that's being consumed is far different than what was being consumed maybe 6 years ago, maybe even 5. How are you playing into that as Nusu Nusu Production? Where do you see the changes coming from, and where do you think the consumer or consumption interest is right now? Is it more in entertainment or infotainment?
So, you know, you're sort of forced in the production space to shift to digital media anyway. I mean, there's not really a choice because your clients are now obviously moving to that space as well, be it Coca-Cola, be it Safaricom, whoever, digital is where to go. So, for us, it doesn't change much, except for the fact that, you're creating something for digital as opposed to for television. So it's, shorter things and, things that keep your attention for, you only need to keep the attention for a minute. But in terms of the quality of the production, it doesn't change much, to be honest. I think digital media, no, sorry, the need for digital content will guide production houses where to go. In the beginning, I'll admit I was a little bit resistant to it because I'm a very traditional person in terms of the way media is. But now I've realized the potential of digital media.
Yeah.
So we've adapted. And I would say probably 60 to 70% of our output is probably, digital output.
I like that. Adapted. There's someone here who is saying, okay, they're talking about addiction, but I guess now we can just respond to most of the questions. Boss Woman is saying, I've been addicted for the last 4 years. I mainly gamble and smoke weed. Like a month ago, I told everybody who is important in my life and asked for help. Hearing Fahreed only inspires me. Yeah. And someone else here is saying, I love, okay, Nyokabi D is saying, I love the sincerity, Fahreed. And Black Excellence is saying, Rude Awakening was the best show you ever heard this far, I guess. Was it the one on XFM?
Yeah.
Why did you live it?
That's very nice. Those are nice comments. For those who are struggling with addiction, there's a great saying in the Alcoholics and Narcotics Anonymous program. And these programs are for people who have a desire to stop using. It's not for people who don't use or will never use. It's for people who have a desire to stop using. And I think that every addict who has a desire, a genuine desire to stop using, will have a shift at some point, and that shift will be the shift they need to say, right, I'm done with this life. A lot of addicts I speak to, young people, it's the fear of missing out, isn't it, more than anything else? That, if they don't, take part in substance abuse or using, that they're going to miss out on hanging out with their friends. And that's, I'm not going to lie to you, there's an element of that too. But when you become comfortable with who you are and you make a decision in your mind that's not the life you want, it becomes very easy to make the decision to stay away from excuse me, to stay away from people and things, people, places, and things. That's the key. Yeah.
All right. There's someone else here. Okay, somebody saying Fahreed and Shanice used to be my alarm back in the day. Really now? Okay, somebody's saying, did you say you can't just do radio and do stand-up comedy? Why don't you think you can do that?
I'm saying I might be funny on radio, but I know for a fact I would not be able to do stand-up comedy. That's what I'm saying. So, because I've had people tell me honestly that I should do stand-up comedy, like you should do, yeah. And I honestly don't think I can.
All right, Brian Aseli is saying, my icon, Rude Awakening slapped different. It changed my perception on people in general. Right.
That's nice. Thank you.
All right, let me take a question here. I think you can see that one. Black Excellence is asking, kindly ask Fahreed if he, what kind of question is this? If he kind of like
having a podcast. I've been asked by a number of people to do a podcast. I just haven't had the time. I would love to do one, but if I do it, I have to do it consistently, and I'm afraid that I might drop off and not be able to manage it as consistently as I'd like. So.
Right. Okay. Ever felt a need to use any of the substances you did? Not abuse, just use.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, recovery from substance abuse is not a walk in the park, my friend. It's there are times when I'm had a very long day and would love to have a scotch or smoke a joint, whatever the case may be. But you have to fill your time with other things. No, it's not a walk in the park. It doesn't just go away. I've got people I know in recovery that are 25, 30 years in recovery who still, once in a while feel the need to pick up. So no, it's not a walk in the park. But if it was easy, then, it wouldn't be as rewarding as it is. Let's put it that way.
Have you had a relapse before?
I have. I've had a few since I came back from rehab. I think I've had 2 or 3 actually. Yeah. Relapse, more of a slip. But yeah, I don't think slip relapse. What's the difference, you know? Sorry.
Are
Excuse
you
me.
okay? Are you okay? Those are not symptoms of
Yeah, I
COVID.
don't know why. No, no, I hope not. I did have a test last week, so but you know, you never know.
Okay.
I'm hoping not. No, I've had a couple of relapses, but found my way back onto the wagon again immediately afterwards. Um, I don't, you know, it's not for me. It's not the end of the world.
All
You have
right.
a relapse, you bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I think sometimes it's just about you being honest about yourself and how you feel. Let's talk about some of the life lessons that you've had. I mean, along the way, I'm sure there's like tons of things you always jot down and say, this is something I'd like for everybody to know. What are some of those life lessons that you've put down along the way?
I think probably the biggest one for me is that, you know, we should not regret the past, but but don't shut the door on it either. You know, those reminders from your past are vitally important to keep you going. I'm not just talking about, you know, recovery from drugs and alcohol or substance abuse. I'm just talking about anything.
Mhm.
So, you know, don't live to regret it, but don't shut the door on it is a big one for me. Another big one for me is anyone at any time of their life can change and become a better person, you know. Um, and you know, character defects we all have, some more than others. I had many and still have many. Um, but you know, be cognizant of when you're doing something that is harmful to somebody. And they don't even have to know. You know what I mean? I'm talking about something that you do that you know would harm somebody. Just be careful and always remember. Um, my mom used to say this. Just think about how you would feel in a situation like that.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me now. I was, you know, I used to lie a lot. I used to, you know, cheat a lot. I was not a great husband, to be honest.
What kind of lies did you
You
tell,
know,
Fareed?
no, I mean, I was obviously hiding an addiction from many people for many years. So clearly,
Oh.
there was a lot of lies there. But then I would lie because you know, just didn't feel like it, you know, it mattered. It wasn't a big deal, you know. And then you realize that actually. So I try now to be as honest as I possibly can. I mean, sometimes to a fault, where people are like, you know, you didn't have to be so honest. But you know, I really think that if you're going to be an honest person, then you're an honest person 100%. You know, you can't sort of be halfway honest and halfway sparing people's feelings, etc., etc. So now my honesty's kind of taken on a different a different role altogether. You know, if I don't like something, I'll simply say I don't like it. You know, and I mean,
So,
I'm a little bit more polite than that.
did you at any one point feel like back then, let's stick with the lies for a minute. Did you always feel like you always had to have the right answers for people when they asked you something, even when you knew
Yes.
it's not right?
Yes, yes, yes. I was a big people pleaser too. I didn't have a lot of boundaries. I wanted everyone to be happy and like me. I don't really care anymore, you know. I mean, obviously I care, but I mean, I don't. It doesn't drive me in life. But you know, a lot of these things came about because of my sobriety more
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. And I don't want to sort of say that's the fundamental reason that I'm in a better place. But you know, in my situation as Fareed, as an individual, a unique human being, you know, it all started when I got clean. But that doesn't mean that because my first year of sobriety, I was clean, but I was still the same, you know, kind of rotten person, just sober. You know, they call it being a dry drunk. You know, staying sober is a very small part of the entire recovery process. There's a lot of character, you know, changes and modifications you need to make that went hand in hand with your, you know, using and abusing.
Yeah.
So, so, you know, I think that for me, it was more the changing of character defects, the improving of myself, and that, you know, they go hand in hand. So one drives the other, really, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And now let's talk about the lessons that you'd like to pass down to all these young radio presenters, because I think what we have today are they called celebrities these days? I feel like today's radio presenters are all about the fame and less about the content that they're putting out there. What do you have to say about that?
So, you know, it's a job and it requires a skill set and it requires a lot of hard work. I spend an hour to 2 hours every evening prepping for the next day. I don't just get on the air and talk. There are days though that I have absolutely wiped out that I don't prep, but then I'll get up half an hour early and prep. You know, it's a serious job. It's not one so that you can become famous, although I thought that when I started, so I wouldn't fault anyone for feeling that that's the reason they want to do it. But it's hard work. It's hard work to stay on top of your game for 20 years. In fact, I think it's myself and Mina left from that generation that are still managing to pull numbers and you know, woo advertisers onto our shows and listeners. So, you know, it's a job like any job. It's hard work. It's not, you know, people always say, oh my God, you have this glamorous life. I'm like, you know what? Getting up at 4:15 every morning, and working till, you know, 8, 9, 10, 11 at night is not glamorous.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's not, you know, it's hard work, you know, to be good at, you know, like I said, making sounds and pictures for a living. It takes time and patience and a lot of effort. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it, I think. So just know that if you're getting into the industry, it's not about turning on a microphone at 6 o'clock and leaving the studio at 10, having absolutely nothing planned or prepped. Or there's a whole back end that goes into creating good radio and a good radio program, and you need to put in the effort and the time to do it, and the research.
Research, absolutely. So, I mean, the first two messages I showed you at the beginning were about two individuals who have benefited from your humility. How important is humility in life, in career, in everything?
I'm gonna share this with you, and then I've got
Mm-hmm.
to log off because I have a Zoom call at 9. So I'll share this with you because this is exactly what you're asking me.
Right.
About 7 years ago, in the height of my addiction, in fact, when my addiction was really spiraling out of control,
Okay, your voice
I
has
made a
gotten
lot of
hollow.
money.
Something
We
has
made
happened.
we made a lot of.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
My company made a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
1 year, a lot. We bought a lot of really nice things. Um, and my mom said to me, she said, "Don't you think you should go to the mosque and give thanks?" And I responded to her, and I think about this every day, and I apologize for it all the time. I responded to my mom and said, "Give thanks to who?" I said, "I did this. There's no one I'm thanking but me." And I choke up when I tell this story because I feel so rotten for that approach to my life. And I feel that that was the beginning of the worst stage of my life when I made that comment.
Yeah.
Um, that could be coincidental. That could be a spiritual alignment that went completely wrong. That could be a really awful vibration I gave out to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I am humbled by my success. If you talk to people now that interact with me, they will always, I will always want them to say what the messages that you read in the beginning, that I had time, that I had care, that I asked how they were. I don't ask people how they are because I need to get it out of the way. I ask them because I genuinely want to know.
Really want to know.
I
Yeah.
have only realized what humility was in the last 3 years of my life. Um, and it was that turning point that drives me there. That comment I made to my mom, that drives me. When I think about that now, I actually feel a little bit physically ill. You know what I mean? That I
Yeah.
could have had that much arrogance and entitlement to my success when actually no, my success hinges on everything that happens around me. You know what I mean? It hinges on the places I put myself, but it doesn't just happen because of me. So I think humility and being humble. I'm not saying people have to be religious. I'm not. I've become spiritual
Mm-hmm.
through my recovery. I'm not religious at all, but I do know that there are powers beyond mine that are giving me guidance every day, that are helping me to achieve what I want to, and teaching me lessons. So when I make wrong decisions, those are just lessons. They're not. It's not the world ending. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
So
And
you
I
do
think
believe
that
in a
if you,
higher power now?
oh, 100%. I 1000% have a higher power that looks after me. I mean, I wish we had more time because I have some really good higher power stories, but I have to go. I'm sorry. I know it's 9 now, and I have to hop on a Zoom call with a South African client.
Right.
So I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I hope I answered all your questions.
You
And
did.
I
You
hope
did
you.
actually. There are a number of others, but I'm just going to ask them to DM you so they can get responses to their questions as well. Thank you so much, Fahreed. It's been really
Thank you.
awesome having you on here, and thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for sharing the lessons, and hopefully I get to meet you sometime soon. Maybe
Absolutely. I'd love
during
that.
or
Thank you.
post-COVID.
Yeah, anytime you have my number, give me a call, and please, please, please keep in touch. And thank you
Absolutely.
again for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. It was an honor hosting you. So have a good night and take care.
You too. Thanks again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Ooh, all right, guys, that was a powerful conversation we just had with Fahreed, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree that it takes a high level of sincerity and honesty with oneself to be able to admit some of the things he's been able to admit as well. And I guess the journey of healing starts with acceptance, but it also starts with you realizing that you can do better, yeah, in everything that you aspire to do. And so, yeah, I'm seeing quite a number of comments here. Black Excellence, you're saying what's killing radio is picking funny folk on stage and then having them as presenters. That would be my take. And I'm seeing also somebody else, Madrine Nyambura, you're saying radio needs to continually adapt, but it's not dead. Absolutely. I actually think radio will be the last man standing in all of this disruption that we're going through. And yeah, let me see if I can read through some other comments. Madrine Nyambura, you're saying we celebrate Fahreed's journey. Absolutely. You guy who said that Fahreed and Shanice used to be your alarm clock back in the day. Really now? But it's good to know. Ivix, you're saying also you've been 20 years on radio this month, I think. That was meant for Fahreed, I guess. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate the time taken. If you guys have any further questions, I'm sure you can DM Fahreed as well. So I'm going to read a few more comments. Ashley Mungai, you're saying humility 100%. Script Tofoti. Okay. You're saying higher power at work here. Yep. Ivix, you're saying that was amazing. Great evening, everybody. Well, have a great evening, Ivix. I'm also waiting on you to buy me a plane, all right? And Bethan Okoth, you're saying you're an amazing host, Joy. Love you. Thank you so much, Bethan. And Zweli Power, you're saying, I must say you're beautiful. Thank you. Guys, it's time for us now to go. I have to go as well. Thank you all for joining us on this edition of Bira Online. I'll see you again on Monday. Guys, tomorrow I'm going to be having an edition of Bira Online because of one, there's something that happened in Uganda 3-4 years ago that got me involved. And so it's like some sort of anniversary of sorts of something terrible. How I ended up in the hands of the military in Uganda was just something crazy. But yeah, so tomorrow we're not going to have a Bira Online edition. But, oh, Michelle, you're saying, Joy, is there training at Bira Online? Oh, that's a really good question. Can I DM you, Michelle, if you don't mind? But guys, good night. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'll see you again on Monday, right? On Monday, we are hosting Georgie Ndirango, who is a BBC presenter. So you